Just want to go ahead and ask you, this is a new channel, so if you can go ahead and subscribe to it if you kind of like what I'm doing here. Just please go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, share. 500 Days of Summer. Spoiler alert. Just want to go ahead and get that out of the way. Alright. But this is an in-depth kind of understanding of the character and the narrative of the story. At least that's what I'm hoping. So, this is a romantic comedy. This is not a romantic comedy. Even in the very beginning of the film, the narrator, who actually is the writer, who actually is the main protagonist, tells us that this is not a romance movie. Tom, the narrator, and the writer are all the same person. The narrator is going to kind of be skewed in his perception of the world. So this is not supposed to be an accurate depiction of reality. But we'll get back to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. A young man named Tom who lives in LA, which is probably where the writer of the story lives. And he meets somebody, and he works for a greeting card company. He meets this woman. He immediately falls in love with this woman. They have a passionate romance. They do not have a passionate romance. But Tom thinks that they have a passionate romance. Tom thinks a lot of things in this film. This film is all about what Tom thinks. Tom has a very active imagination. This is not, there's a story of a girl and there's a story of a boy. And they get together and they meet and they have these different challenges, and both of them are fully fleshed out characters. No, but that's what Tom thought this story was going to be. So Tom works for a greeting card company. He really does not care a whole lot for his job. But what he does like is this new person, this new assistant that was hired by the owner of the company, or the CEO of the company. I think he's the owner of the company. And he's immediately enamored with her, and it talks about the romance, and then it, basically things fall apart. He tries to get things back together again. It doesn't work out. The end. First thing that we need to do is we need to talk about who or what Summer actually is. Summer is not a person. She is not a character. She is the manifestation of Tom's fantasy. So, and she is the manifestation of every person's fantasy. So there's that part in the film where they start talking about her past. Her past is really kind of what a guy would think that, this girl that he really likes past would be like. Tom has no idea who this person Summer is, because Summer is anybody that we've fallen in love with and that we've just been enamored with. And we're just like, oh, she's so great and she's so perfect and she's so wonderful. That is Summer. Summer is not a real person. Tom doesn't know that yet. Tom is still living in a delusion. So one of the things that you can kind of talk about is that Tom has this love at first sight with Summer, which immediately makes you go, wait a minute. Like, that's not really, I'm sorry, but that's not a real thing. You can have infatuation with somebody, but love is something that comes through empathy, and empathy is something that develops as you get to know the person more, as you start understanding why they do the behaviors that they do, why they have these little nuances that they have, or these idiosyncrasies that they have, and you start seeing them as a full-rounded person, and so you love is kind of like that empathy and that connection, so that you kind of really thoroughly experience this person. That is impossible at first sight. Impossible. Okay? Just get it out of your head. There's no such thing as love at first sight. It does not exist. Summer finally shows up in the third act of the film during the party. And this is after Hit Girl, who shows up in the film as Hit Girl. I mean, she's I don't know what is up with this girl, but I guess every, director that got a hold of her was like, oh my God, she's like 35 years old in a little girl's body, she has this like inner wisdom. And throughout this movie, she goes up to Tom and she's just like, yeah, I don't think you have any idea what's really going on. And after Tom and Summer break up, and when he goes to his little sister for advice, ironically enough, she says, I don't think you ever really knew who she was, basically. Like, I don't think you ever, fully understood who she was. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when Tom goes to that party that she invites him to after they've broken up. This is really well done, because what you see and what the narrator says is he talks about the difference between Tom's reality and Tom's expectations or Tom's fantasy. And so as Tom is walking into it, the screen literally splits into two. And one side, the left side, is Tom's fantasy. The right side is Tom's reality. And at that point, I understood what the director was trying to say. He's trying to say that everything to the left of this split in the film has been a fantasy. Okay? Everything but to the left of this film has been a fantasy. It's at this point where he's actually, now he's coming to this realization that, this is not meshing with reality. So everything to the right of the film, everything moving forward, everything in the past has been a fantasy. Everything moving forward is going to be more coherent with reality. So Tom goes to the party, and he thinks they're getting back together because that meshes with Tom's fantasy. That meshes with our fantasy, Oh, we were so perfect together. So why wouldn't we work out? Because we're perfect, and then of course we have to work out. Towards the end of the party, the reality takes over. The fantasy is left behind. So you see that scene when he's standing on the patio and he realizes that she's become engaged to this person, that he was kind of led here without being fully informed as to what was going on, because Summer, the real Summer, is kind of a terrible person. We're supposed to hate her, so I'm just going to go ahead and hate her because I think that's what the script calls for, is that we're supposed to realize that the fantasy of Summer is the opposite of the reality, and just how naive Tom was. The reality takes over, the fantasy is left in the past. Tom is devastated. Tom goes to work, and one of the greatest scenes of all time takes place.
This one says, go for it. And this one says, you can do it. We have a whole line of inspirational photographic cards featuring Pickles, my cat. I think people will really enjoy them. Thank you.
Good job, Rhoda. That's inspirational stuff. Okay, who's next? We haven't heard from Sympathy in a while. Hanson? The winter collection? Do you have anything to contribute?
No. I really don't.
Okay. We'll come back to you. Mackenzie?
Actually, you know what?
Yes, Tom?
Can I say something about the cat?
Well, okay.
Yeah, this is... And Rhoda, no disrespect here, but, this is total shit.
Tom.
Go for it, and you can do it. That's not inspirational, that's suicidal. If Pickles goes for it right there, that's a dead cat. This is lies. We're liars. And think about it, why do people buy these things? It's not because they want to say how they feel. People buy cards because they can't say how they feel, or they're afraid to. We provide the service that lets them off the hook. You know what? I say to hell with it. Let's level with America. Or at least let them speak for themselves, right? I mean, look, what is this? What does this say? Congratulations on your new baby, right? How about congratulations on your new baby? Guess that's it for hanging out. Nice knowing you.
Sit down, Hanson.
How about this one with all the pretty hearts on the front? I think I know where this is going. Yep. Happy Valentine's Day, sweetheart. I love you. That's sweet. Ain't love grand? This is exactly what I'm talking about. What does that even mean? Love. Do you know? Do you? Anybody?
Tom.
If somebody gave me this card, Mr. Vance, I would eat it. It's these cards. And the movies and the pop songs, they're to blame for all the lies. And the heartache. Everything. And we're responsible. I'm responsible. I think we do a bad thing here. People should be able to say how they feel. How they really feel, not, you know, some words that some strangers put in their mouths. Words like love. That don't mean anything. Sorry, I'm sorry. I quit. There's enough bullshit in the world without my help.
But she shows pictures of her cat, and it's like he's sitting there going, you know, hey, this is my cat, and this picture of my cat says go for it, and this picture, and then Tom finally is like, hey, can I talk about the cats? And you're like, I wish you wouldn't, because we know where he's gonna go, because we know what he's feeling. He's been disillusioned by Summer. Summer, the reason why Tom at this period of the film hates Summer so much has nothing to do with Summer. He hates her for shattering his illusion of what the world looks like. He watched The Graduate, and he didn't understand about shattering illusions.
The boy, Tom Hanson of Margate, New Jersey, grew up believing that he'd never truly be happy until the day he met the one. This belief stemmed from early exposure to sad British pop music and a total misreading of the movie The Graduate.
That's how naive he was. Love. What is love? And the funny thing is that the owner of the greeting card company, when asked if he loves his wife, quotes a greeting card written by somebody else at the firm.
21 years. She's the light that guides me home. Yes, that is from one of our cards. No, someone else wrote it. Doesn't make it less true.
The owner of the greeting card company doesn't understand how to articulate his own feelings. Doesn't understand how to analyze his own feelings and how to experience his own feelings. He needs a greeting card to do that. And that is what Tom is discovering, is that up until this point in his life, this relationship with Summer has been a greeting card. If you go back and you look at the film again, you'll realize, you know, that there's certain instances that are really telling about how narcissistic Tom is, how caught up in the fantasy Tom is. And one of my favorite, you know, scenes in the film is when Tom is talking to her, and she says that line, you know, where he's talking about how important this line is to him, and she says, I've never told anybody this before.
As he listened, Tom began to realize that these weren't stories routinely told. These were stories one had to earn. He could feel the wall coming down. He wondered if anyone else had made it this far, which is why the next 6 words changed everything.
I've never told anybody that before.
I guess I'm not just anybody.
And the funny thing is that he's been so caught up in that scene in his own head about how great this whole thing is, that she's talking to him about these certain things that happened to him and blah, 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 that he doesn't hear what she's saying. You would make a terrible therapist, Tom. But he's at the park and he sees Summer again, and Summer asks him how he's doing, and they do this kind of exchange. And you really kind of, I think that this is really supposed to flesh out who Summer really is. Who the real person that Summer is. And that she's not really, again, she's not very nice. When he asks, why, you didn't want to even be somebody's, girlfriend, but now you're married. How did you know? What happened? And she's literally is like, oh, I just woke up one morning and I knew. And I saw this with somebody else, and she said something about that, like, oh, well, that happens. And I'm like, yeah, if you're a crazy person, because she could just as easily wake up one morning 10 years down the road in this marriage and be like, you know what? It's over.
You never wanted to be anybody's girlfriend, and now you're somebody's wife.
It surprised me, too.
I don't think I'll ever understand that. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
It just happened.
Right, but that's what I don't understand. What just happened?
I just woke up one day and I knew.
Knew what?
What I was never sure of with you.
And that's kind of a really shitty thing to say. But she doesn't care. Because Hit Girl, having never met the person, to the best of our knowledge, kind of realizes that she's kind of a piece of shit.
You should have told me. When we were at the, wedding and we were dancing.
Well, he hadn't asked me yet.
But he was in your life.
Yeah.
So why'd you dance with me?
Because I wanted to.
You just do what you want, don't you? Penis.
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 There's kids around.
There are no kids around.
Penis!
Penis!
It's fucking weird.
I know you think that she was the one, but I don't. No, I think you're just remembering the good stuff. Next time you look back, I really think you should look again.
Regardless of who it hurts, regardless of the consequences, you do what you want. And that, I think, is the final kind of awakening for Tom when he realizes how wrong he was about this person. Not the woman that you need to be with. That's why they have the scene at the architecture agency, is because he's meeting Autumn. Autumn is the representation of the woman that he's going to be with. That, for me, finally made sense as to why it's called 500 Days of Summer, because summer is a metaphor, but it's also a metaphor for summertime. He had to put his summer romance behind him to leave space for autumn. He had to let go of that intoxicating, even the resentment of that person. He had to eventually let go of that in order to move into autumn and find somebody that has some real substance to them. And so 500 Days of Summer is talking about his summer romance, not his romance with Summer. From his experience with Summer, he learns that it's okay to take a chance. Because if you remember, when he met Summer, it took him a really long time to do anything about it. But when he meets Autumn, he's like, hey, let's go and, let's do this and whatever and blah, 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 blah. He actually goes back and talks to her the minute he meets her. He doesn't want to screw around anymore. And that is very telling that Tom has kind of grown up through this whole experience. He's trying to figure out how to make it perfect. And he's like, oh, well, you know, we can get together afterwards and I'll do and she's like, it'll work out. Now that his expectations have been more aligned with the reality, he doesn't have to worry so much. And like I always like to talk about is, what is the moral of the story? What is the moral of the narrative that the writer's trying to get across? That woman, that bitch, that terrible bitch that he talks about at the beginning of the film was something that he learned was necessary in order for him to kind of wake up. He's got this illusion of what, you know, this perfect relationship would be like. And of course, you know, no woman's ever going to meet that expectation. His expectations, which brings us back to when this, you know, when the film gets rid of his expectations. He sees clearly now. And so the moral of this story is that we need suffering. That through suffering, regardless of how hard it can be sometimes, through suffering, we gain clarity. Suffering can be a very beneficial thing. It knocks Tom out of his delusion. But in reality, if you look around the world, if you look around what's going on a lot of times, that most people are caught up in this their own little universe, their own little delusion. You know, they go out, they buy greeting cards, they have this concept or this idea, but they spend so much time trying to avoid suffering that they never grow as a person. They never mature out of childhood. You know, that Tom is a late bloomer, but it's better to be late than never. But I think what 500 Days of Summer is trying to tell us to do is to re-examine our relationships, our past relationships, our present relationships, that we only have a finite time to live, and are we living a delusion? Is our job, how miserable is our job making us? How miserable is our relationship making us? How miserable are we willing to put up with? Are we willing to put up with misery just because we're afraid that the next one is going to be more miserable? You know, that's what I got at 500 Days of Summer. And, you know, I hope that this was kind of helpful in examining, you know, what was kind of going on in the movie, at least for me. And just want to go ahead and ask you, this is a new channel, so if you can go ahead and subscribe to it if you kind of like what I'm doing here. Just please go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, share, a little encouragement. Wait a minute, I'm on YouTube looking for self-esteem? No? I sure hope not. But yeah, if you could go ahead and like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, that would be great. And as I always say, just keep doing stuff.